Yo, YouTube, what's up with your boy? Sports and Fitness Rants. I'm back, guys. Click that like button. Subscribe to my channel. What's up, y'all? Welcome back, guys. Welcome back, man. We're back, guys. Back, man. Got another video for you guys today, man. I want to thank all you guys for your love, man, your comments, all that stuff, guys. If you have any video requests, guys, let me know. I try to, respond to you guys. I try to make some videos and, hook you guys up, man, if you guys have any special requests or things like that, man. So I always appreciate that, guys. And in this video, we're going to continue to celebrate Michael Jordan. We're going to continue to celebrate the 80s and the 90s, man. And we're going to put some respect on Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan, the dynamic duo that they were. Because I make videos trying to put the careers of Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan in perspective. But we all know at the end of the day, guys, they are the greatest duo in NBA history, right? They're recognized as the greatest tandem in the history of the NBA. We're going to talk about that real briefly in this video. But you guys know what to do, man. Turn that volume all the way up. Hit that play button. Listen to my voice. Listen to the information, guys. Remember, these videos are for educational purposes. And let's roll. So, yes, guys, on my channel, I've done videos on the dynamic between Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen. You guys know this. And some people think that I'm disrespecting Scottie Pippen or that I'm not giving him his props and things like that. We know that's not the case. I'm telling the truth. However, in this video, we're going to talk about the dynamic between Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen and what made them the greatest duo of all time, right? Most people consider them the greatest duo in NBA history. I don't think it's a stretch. There have been other great duos, and we'll talk about this, guys. So, when we think about duos in NBA history, first, let's think about some of the great duos, right? Let's think about, Larry Bird and Kevin McHale, right? They were a great duo. They were part of what people consider the greatest front court in NBA history, right? Larry Bird, Kevin McHale, and Robert Parrish. But Larry Bird and Kevin McHale were a great duo, right? Larry Bird, the small forward, Kevin McHale, one of the great power forwards of all time, right? Both very solid defensive players. They're both very underrated defensive players. Who do we think about? Magic Johnson and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, right? One of the greatest duos in NBA history, right? One of the greatest winning tandems in NBA history, right? They won 5 championships together. Right, we all know Magic Johnson, the legendary point guard. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, one of the great centers of all time. Like I said, they were a great duo because it was that down low presence of Kareem and the outside presence, right? The playmaking abilities of a Magic Johnson. We think about who? Kobe and Shaq, right? Kobe and Shaq, probably the one duo that I hear people will constantly bring up when comparing to Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen. You often hear Shaq talk about how him and Kobe were the best duo in NBA history, and Shaq likes to pump himself up a lot, man, especially these days. But that's not true. But they were a great duo, Shaq and Kobe. We all know about Kobe Bryant, right? The skills of Kobe Bryant, right? The game of Kobe Bryant, the all-around greatness of Kobe, right? The mind of Kobe Bryant, the mentality. And we think about Shaquille O'Neal, man, one of the most dominant players of all time. Not the most dominant, but one of the most dominant players in NBA history. One of the great big men. Who else? Kevin Durant, Steph Curry. I guess you can call them a duo, right? They won a couple of championships together. They only played about, 3 seasons together, I believe. But you can consider them a duo. Klay Thompson and Steph Curry, maybe they're a duo. Who else? Tony Parker and Tim Duncan, right? I think they won 4 championships together, right? Tony Parker's a very underrated point guard. He just got inducted into the Hall of Fame. Shout out to Tony Parker, whose idol was Michael Jordan. Isn't that ironic, guys? He idolized Michael Jordan growing up in France as a point guard, idolized Michael Jordan. That's the greatness and the reach of a Michael Jordan. But him and Tim Duncan, the greatest power forward of all time. We all know that. They had a great 1-2 punch there. Tony Parker's perimeter play, his driving ability, his ability to get into the paint. He was one of the great paint guys as a point guard. I think he led the NBA in point paints for a couple of seasons, almost like an Allen Iverson. Tony Parker's ability to get into the paint, right, and draw the defense in and drop it off to a Tim Duncan or kick it out to guys. So they were another great duo. So when we think about all these great duos in NBA history, we can mention Will Chamberlain, Jerry West, and Bill Russell and Bob Cousy, guys. I forgot to mention them. We could mention them also. The thing about Will Chamberlain and Jerry West, once again, they didn't play that many years together. I believe they played 4 seasons together, I want to say maybe. And Bob Cousy and Bill Russell, we all know they played many years together. Maybe, 7, 8 seasons or whatever it was that they played together. But another great duo outside in play. However, if you think about all those duos I mentioned, guys, and then we think about the Scottie Pippen, Michael Jordan dynamic, What's the difference here between those duos I mentioned? Oh, you could also mention LeBron James and Dwayne Wade. Forgive me. LeBron James and Dwayne Wade, another great duo. Once again, they only played, 4 seasons together, but they were a very dynamic duo. But when we think about these duos, guys, in NBA history, and then we relate them to a Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen, one of the main differences between a Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan duo and the other duos I mentioned is that Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen are both elite defensive players. Elite, we're talking about top 10 all-time defensive players. None of the other duos I mentioned are a duo of both top 10 all-time players. Now, you have a Wilt Chamberlain and a Jerry West. You can consider Wilt Chamberlain maybe a top 10 defensive player. I know they didn't have defensive stats, but you know what I'm saying, guys. Wilt Chamberlain was a great defensive player. Jerry West was a very good defensive player also. Was he a top 10 defensive player, though? I don't think so, guys. Dwayne Wade and LeBron James, they're not top 10 defensive players. They're not. LeBron James hasn't played defense in many years, but in his peak with Dwayne Wade, he was a very good defensive player. Not great, but very good defensive player. But they were not on the level of a Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen. We think about Kevin McHale and Larry Bird. I said they were underrated defensive players, but they were not on the level of a Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Magic Johnson. Kareem was a very great defensive player, a very good defensive player, but Magic Johnson was not on that level. Kareem, is he a top 10 defensive player? Maybe. I don't know. Magic Johnson's not. Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, they're not top 10 defensive players. Klay Thompson and Steph Curry, they're not top 10 defensive players. Tim Duncan and Tony Parker. Tim Duncan might be a top 10 defensive player, but Tony Parker's not. Shaq and Kobe. Kobe could be maybe a top 10 defensive player. Shaq is not. This is not knocking these players, these greats, right? Bill Russell, Bob Cousy. Bill Russell is probably the greatest defensive player. Bob Cousy's not. I'm not taking away from these duos, right? Or saying that because these guys weren't great defensive players, that makes them less. What I'm saying is I'm highlighting that's the difference. That's one of the main differences between a Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan duo. They were elite defensive players on the perimeter. Scottie Pippen could probably guard positions 1 through 3, no problem. You know, when people say that Scottie Pippen could guard a 1 through 4 or 1 through 5, what are we talking about here? No, he could not. He could not guard Shaquille O'Neal or Hakeem Olajuwon or David Robinson or Patrick Ewing or even a Ronnie Cycli or Rick Smith, these centers from his era. He couldn't guard these guys. When we think about Scottie Pippen perhaps guarding the power forwards, could Scottie Pippen guard a power forward of that era? I don't think so, guys. He's not guarding a Karl Malone or a Charles Barkley or a Chris Webber. You know, some of these great big power forwards, man. He could maybe guard a power forward that would maybe, you know, be a little bit less of a down low. Because I told you, one of Scottie Pippen's weaknesses on the defensive end was his low post defense, right? He wasn't a great low post defensive player. So someone like a power forward could back him down. So when we think about Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen, they could guard positions 1 through 3, no problem. No problem, in my opinion. The point guard, shooting guard, and the small forwards, they have it covered. So when you think about that duo on the court at the same time, right? They used to call these guys Dobermans along with a Horace Grant. They used to call these guys Dobermans. They released the Dobermans out there. And then later on, it became Ron Harper, right? And Dennis Rodman. But these guys, Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan, right? They fed off each other, right? They complemented each other's games, I feel like, a lot better than some of the other duos. Right? When we think about some of the duos I mentioned, a lot of them were big guys and a guard, or maybe like a big man and a perimeter player, right? We think about a Kareem and a Magic, or a Bill Russell and a Cousy, or a Wilt Chamberlain on the West, a Shaq and a Kobe, a Tim Duncan and a Tony Parker. Some of these duos, they were a big man and a guard and a perimeter player, right? Maybe only LeBron James and a Dwayne Wade you can consider they were 2 perimeter players, right? But like I told you, they weren't playing the defense at the level of a Michael Jordan and a Scottie Pippen. Also, when we think about playmaking abilities between Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen, right? They were both really good playmakers. I've told you, Michael Jordan is one of the greatest playmakers of all time. Scottie Pippen was a very good playmaker. Very good. The difference between a Michael Jordan playmaking and a Scottie Pippen playmaking, as I told you, Scottie Pippen was good running that point forward in the triangle, right? However, Michael Jordan had more of an all-around game, right? He could make plays out of the post, on the perimeter, with or without the basketball. He was better at that than a Scottie Pippen. We think about that and we relate that to other duos in NBA history. These other duos are not the playmaking duos of a Scottie Pippen and a Michael Jordan together, right? Yeah, Magic Johnson might be the greatest passer and playmaker of all time, but Kareem wasn't on that level of a Scottie Pippen or Michael Jordan. We think about a Tim Duncan, a Tony Parker, a Shaq, and a Kobe. These guys are not on the playmaking of a Michael Jordan and a Scottie Pippen. A Wilt Chamberlain and a Jerry West. They were good playmakers, absolutely. But like I said, it wasn't the dynamic of a Scottie Pippen and a Michael Jordan. Also, one of the other things we must think about when it comes to Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen, the dynamic between them, why they're considered the greatest duo of all time. One, they won the most, right? They won 6 titles, guys. But what people don't realize is they won 6 titles playing, I believe, 8 or 9 seasons together. I believe it was 9 seasons, maybe 9 full seasons they played together, guys. Think about that. The only years that they didn't win titles together was the first 2 years Scottie Pippen got there, right? The developmental stage of a Scottie Pippen or Horace Grant, these guys. But they won 6 titles in 9 full seasons together. That's dynamic. That's really maximizing, right, your potentials, your abilities together. I told you they fed off each other in practice, right? We've often heard stories, and I've told you guys stories of Michael Jordan pushing Scottie Pippen in practice, Scottie Pippen attacking Michael Jordan in practice, trying to come at Michael Jordan, right? Steel sharpens steel. They both helped each other in practice, which led to their on-court success, right? None of these other duos were pushing each other like that in practice, right? They couldn't because they weren't the same position. Right? Is Tony Parker going to guard Tim Duncan in practice and push him? No. Was Magic Johnson going to push Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in practice by guarding him and making things difficult for him? No, that's not how it was. It was a different dynamic, right? We all know about Shaq and Kobe. Kobe was so abrasive towards Shaq because he didn't want to hustle that Shaq left. They ran him out of town. Meanwhile, Michael Jordan was the same way, abrasive and hard on Scottie Pippen, but I always gave Scottie Pippen credit for sticking through, for pushing through, right? Not requesting a trade or leaving in free agency, none of that nonsense. Staying there, battling it out, earning Michael Jordan's respect, earning the respect of the entire NBA, which somehow he seems to have forgotten that we always respected Scottie. But that's the one thing we have to think about, guys. Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan, the continuity they developed over the years, pushing each other in practice over the years, right? All that, those years together, the consistency is what made them great, a great duo. Some of those other duos I mentioned, guys, they only played 3-4 seasons together, maybe 5 seasons, with the exceptions of guys like, I think Kevin McHale, Larry Bird, they played maybe like 7 or 8 seasons together, whatever it was. You have a Tony Parker and a Tim Duncan that played a lot of years together. A Kareem and Magic played a significant amount of years together. But no one won as much as a Scottie Pippen and a Michael Jordan because I told you, their games complemented each other. I've told you in the video the other day about what Scottie Pippen meant for Michael Jordan, the approach of the game, right? Scottie Pippen could take some of the defensive burden off of him, right? Save Michael Jordan's energy for the fourth quarter to close out games. It was a give and take there, right? Scottie Pippen could run the second unit, right? Michael Jordan could take a rest. These other duos had that kind of dynamic, really. They just weren't on that level. To me, it was the defensive abilities of Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen which separated them. It just separated them. It may not seem like a big deal. Yeah, when you think about a Shaq and Kobe duo, you think maybe a lot of people have Shaq top 10, they have Kobe top 10. A lot of people have Shaq top 5 and Kobe top 5. So when you think about it, they're like, oh, they're both top 5 or top 10 players. They have to be the greatest duo of all time because there's no way that Scottie Pippen's ever a top 10 player, not even a top 20 player, in my opinion, guys. He's around that top 30 range. So when you hear that, you think, oh, well, how is Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen a greater duo than a Shaq and Kobe? It's simple, guys. Their games complement each other greater than a Kobe and a Shaq. And people might think, well, Shaq and Kobe had the inside-outside game. Right? It's not about that, though. I told you, it's about what they fed off each other in practice, what that translated onto the court. The defensive abilities of these guys. Because your defense will always be there. Remember that. If you have nothing else, guys, at least you have your defense. Offense will come and go sometimes, right? Sometimes you're not making your shots, right? Sometimes Kobe's going to be off. Sometimes LeBron's going to be off. Dwayne Wade's going to be off. Magic's not hitting the shot. Kareem's not hitting the shots. Whoever it is, Jordan's off. These guys are off, right? Tim Duncan's off that night, but what you can hang your hat on is the defense. The defense will always be there for you because half of defense is the effort, guys. It's the effort you give. Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan always gave the effort on the defensive end. They didn't half step on defense. So if their offensive games weren't going right, maybe their whole team in general, they were just having off night. It was one of those nights. You can hang your hat on D. The defense would be there to keep them in games. As opposed to some of those other duos I mentioned, where maybe only one of those players was a dynamic defensive player. a consistent defensive player for long periods of time. Remember, this was 9 seasons of Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan being top defensive players in the league, right? The consistency, the hustle on the defensive end. That's the difference, guys. That's the key between Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan, that they were able, why they were able to win 6 titles and be such a great duo. It's the defensive effort that they gave all the time, consistently, which rubbed off on their teammates. The defense was always there. I've told you guys, especially that second three-peat, it was all about the defense of the Chicago Bulls. People sleep on that. It was all about the defense, guys. Ron Harper, Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Dennis Rodman, those are defensive specialists right there. It wasn't about them scoring 120 points a game and being this great offensive team. Yes, they were a great offensive team with guys like Michael Jordan there. Right, in the triangle, the continuity of the triangle offense, that they had the efficiency, but it was their defense, guys. And that was the difference between a Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen, was the consistent defensive effort that they gave, night in and night out, every single season. So shout out to Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen, man. The greatest duo in NBA history. I don't even think it's a conversation. And this was just many, I just gave you guys examples and reasons why they were different than other duos in NBA history. There have been some great duos, guys. This takes away nothing from these other duos. If you have Shaq and Kobe #1 or LeBron and D Wade, whatever it is, it's on you. That's up to you. It's your opinion, guys. But the difference between Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen, you can see it. The defensive end, and how many years they played together, the consistency, and how much they won, right? 6 titles and basically 9 seasons together, guys. Catch you on the next one.